And then a bump, the bump track. The Rick talking about the pump track. So, Pete, what kind of track do you have?
It has bumps on it, but it's called a pump.
It should,
track.
in hindsight, be called a bump track. Right?
Let's
because
rename
you do have
it.
bumps.
Let's talk to Rick about that. We're going to rename that.
You're talking about bicycles?
Yes.
Hello and welcome. It is great to be with all of you for Worth the Journey, a Worthington Schools podcast. My name is Angie Adrian, and I get to serve Worthington Schools as the Assistant Superintendent of Academics.
And I am Jeff Maddox. I am the Director of Human Resources for the Worthington Schools.
It's good to be with you today, Jeff.
It's great to be with you, Ange.
I'm kind of sad.
Yeah, it is kind of an ending.
It is. Today is the final podcast for the 23-24 school year.
But we do have a lot to celebrate.
We do.
We have met some pretty cool people along our journey, which made this worthwhile.
It did. We talked to 18. We had 18 podcasts. We didn't just.
That's pretty amazing.
I mean, one podcast, the first one was just you and I before we were ready to interview anyone. And
I've not yet gone back to listen to that one because I hope our listeners believe we've evolved along the way.
Let's not do that. To our listeners out there who maybe this is your first time listening to our podcast, want to just remind you that Jeff and I do get to work in Worthington Schools, and Worthington Schools is a district of about 11,000 students and 1,400 staff. We in Worthington really do take a lot of pride in building strong relationships with others, which truly impacts our culture. We know that culture makes people understand each other better, and when we understand each other better, it certainly is a lot more fun to work together. And Jeff and I and Corey have a pretty good time doing this podcast together. That culture that we talk about encompasses shared values, traditions, and really diverse perspectives that shape the identity of our community. Our mission in Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. In this podcast, we get to interview others who are already changing the world through intentional efforts of storytelling. Unfortunately, today, Jeff and I don't get to interview anyone, but we are going to kind of go through and summarize those 18 interviews that we had the opportunity to have, some of the things that we learned throughout this podcast series. And already we are planning for the 24-25 school year on those that we can bring in to be a part of our podcast. But Jeff, I think one of the most beneficial things about this is we got to interview people, and through that, we built relationships with those people. You knew them because you were a part of hiring, especially a lot of our new teachers that we interviewed. But then when you get to sit down with them and learn a little more about them through the podcast and then go out into the classroom and see them in the building, there's this automatic connection, which was pretty cool for me.
Very cool. We got to, like you and I, Ange, we knew the folks, but to bring them into a space and provide them the opportunity to be able to share their thoughts and feelings outside of an interview or outside of what's going on in their daily classroom. We appreciated that.
Absolutely.
And I walked away energized every time we had an opportunity to connect with somebody.
Absolutely. And it's now June.
Yeah.
It's
hard to
June.
believe.
Graduation, we had our commencement ceremonies. Graduation is complete. Thanks to all of our principals and our staff for the awesome opportunities for our students through fun days. And all of the awesome, there were dunk tanks and bubble pits, soap. What were those? What were those? Did you see those, Corey? You took pictures at some of those. They were
they're bubbles.
Are they bubble pits? Is that what they're called? I don't know what they're called.
They've definitely evolved. It's
foam. That's it. Foam.
Yes,
it's foam. It's not bubbles.
For.
It's foam. Yeah. I never got to do any of that kind of stuff, so that's pretty cool.
We had field day at Wilson Hill Elementary School. That was a huge day for us as we did various field activities. That was exciting.
That was good.
But just to watch, and again, I'm going to oversimplify the school year. We had a really good school year at the Worthington Schools.
Really good
And it's
school
because
year.
of the people who show up every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a big shout out to Dairy Queen, Ron Overstreet with Dilly Bars.
Oh, man.
We
The
just had some
number of
those.
dilly
Yeah.
bars, that guy, it's,
does.
It's impressive.
He gives back to our community, and we appreciate that, Ron. Thank you very
Ron,
much.
thank you. I will tell you, though, Buster Bar is my favorite.
Yeah, we didn't have those.
No, I get
I think
it.
it was just dilly bars.
I think it was flavored dilly bars, which are good. Look,
They
I'm
are.
not going to pass on those, but I'm definitely going Buster Bar.
I don't know, but when I was growing up, we didn't have cherry. We didn't have Heath. We have all those now.
Butterscotch. I do like butterscotch.
I do too.
I'm a
but
fan
like
of
I
butterscotch.
just it was just chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the people we got to interview. So our series started off, our first series started off with the Rocking Chair series, where we interviewed Teresa, Greg, and Tim. Some great stories from those three.
Learned, they've been in our district for a long time. Greg Witt, shout out Greg, is retiring at the end of this school year. It did retire at the end of the school year. But that was a great way to start. It really set a foundation for us to be able to learn and hear from people who have been in our district for so long, and still continue to talk so positively about their work.
That's right. I'm still a little disappointed in Teresa not knowing the kind of lunchbox that Dr. Bowers carried, but
Yeah, I think
she remembers Dr. Bowers, but
I think she ran interference for Dr. Bowers. I think she's got some deeper stories that she wasn't, and proud of her. She didn't.
That's right.
She didn't give up any of that information.
No, she didn't.
She held it back. That was good.
remember the conversations that the three of us had in, hey, we want to get this guy on, Tim Kite, E plus R equals O, and we all follow Tim's leadership and his philosophies and how we'll never get Tim Kite on, and we wanted to do it on the air, and Corey's kind of looking at us like, holy cow, you want to do a videotape? Guys, we're just getting started on learning how to do this podcast. Thank goodness we had the opportunity, because unfortunately we lost Tim Kite not too long ago, and certainly his legacy will live on, and really, really grateful for the opportunity to get to speak with him and, be a part of his work.
You want to talk about somebody who's changed the world.
Yeah.
Tim's legacy will live on forever. That is the single episode when we were finished and Corey started to put it together that I immediately got it out to my family.
Oh, yeah.
And I've listened to it again because just the way Tim says things, it sits with me really well. Now, I know we all connect with information and motivation differently.
Sure.
Tim's voice speaks to me, and the way he phrases things and the way he puts things in perspective. I needed to get it out to my own three kids because life is full of different challenges. And how you step up and respond to challenges is so important, because life is full of those challenges, and you cannot go through life without challenges. But how you respond to those is going to define you.
Right.
I was just honored to be able to meet Tim. You knew Tim prior to this. I didn't. And I'm just honored to be able to say I got to meet Tim.
Absolutely. I think the cool thing about Tim is that, while that's the leadership that he speaks, he models it and modeled it every day, even through his illness. His glass was always half full, and spoke positively about everything that he got to do, and cherished it until the end.
Yep.
And then we got to reflect with some of our new teachers. One of those new teachers, Jeff, I knew her, right? I knew her through the interview process. I got to meet her at new teacher orientation. And then we brought her in to interview her because we felt like she was doing a really good job.
Mm-hmm. And still
She is.
Yeah, doing really well.
But I say all that because not too long after that, she calls me and says, hey, I think it'd be a really good idea if you came to our fun day and got in the dunk tank.
See what happens.
See, if I wouldn't have built a relationship with her, I would have never been invited to get in the dunk tank.
How many times did you go
So
down?
I got in the dunk tank at least 25 times. And that's not fun for somebody my age.
No, that's
the next morning I woke up and I'm like,
why am I
what
so
did I
sore?
do yesterday? I feel like I have whiplash. I was reminded that it was dunk tank whiplash. So thanks, Mel. I appreciate that.
Mel, Abby, and Todd.
Yep.
And Angie, you and I have talked about this. So I go out on the recruiting trail when I go to various universities. That is, in fact, what I hear the most is people coming up and saying, hey, listen to your podcast. And it was really important to be able to listen to the voices of what it's like to be a new teacher in Worthington. If anything comes out of this podcast, selfishly as the HR director, it does provide a gateway into Worthington and gets people to hear voices, hear how we interact, hear how people are supported. And we live in a world right now where that connectivity to people coming into our profession is never been as big as it is. And this has provided an opportunity for us to have the voices connect with people who don't know the Worthington schools yet. And Mel and Abby and Todd really resonated this year.
You summarized that really well, and that takes me back to early fall when we worked with the Ohio State University and their communications department, and their job was to create opportunities for us to put Worthington on the map and spotlight Worthington. And they said to us, we think you should start a podcast. Now, they offered lots of other things that we said, absolutely, we can do all of those things. Sure. Podcast was the last thing on our mind. And then you came to me and said, Angie, I think we need to give that a shot. And I was like, there's no way. We can't do that. And then we talked to Corey, and of course, Corey ordered the equipment for us and set us up to execute a podcast. So thanks to the Ohio State University students, we are now 1 year into this and have an opportunity to sit down with our communications department, I think next week here in Worthington. And I'm a little worried about that meeting.
Yep, I get it. I mean,
because like we could feel really good about this, and
100%.
we could sit down with Vicky and Corey and Don Taylor and Trent and have this conversation, and then learn that
canceled after season one.
Canceled after season one.
Yeah.
Are there any shows out there that have been canceled after season one that we could compare ourselves to?
You know, fact check me out there, but I think Jody Loves Chachi was canceled after season one.
Jody Loves Chachi
is the spinoff of Happy Days. A little newer
Battlestar
show.
Galactica?
That was a one season. Shockingly, Battlestar Galactica was a season only. TV show out there that's a little newer, Freaks and Geeks. That got a lot of press, but that was sadly canceled after one season. So
we
my fingers are crossed that Worth the Journey is not on that list of some pretty talented things that disappeared after one season.
What I would really hope for is that we would be viewed as like, this is us, and you can't wait until the next episode comes out.
Absolutely.
But we probably should go for the middle. And
that's funny you bring that up. That might be my wife's favorite TV show of all time.
That's a great
She
TV show.
has repeatedly said she wants to rewatch that entire show with me.
Yeah.
And I have said, Kelly, I can't watch it because I don't want to cry.
I know.
Because every time I would walk in and she's watching the show, she's crying.
And so then you start crying, and you're like, why do we do this to ourselves? Right. So hopefully that's not the case. So let's keep going. For those of you that don't know, Carl Fisher at the Thomas Worthington High School graduation ceremony was honored with the Hall of Fame Award as a guest teacher. First ever in Worthington schools, I believe, that we have awarded a guest teacher for Hall of Fame.
You, as a high school principal, did that. So how does somebody get onto the Hall of Fame?
So it is quite intense. There is a committee of students and staff that are a part of that committee, and it's a secret committee. And so teachers and students are nominated. Those nominations then go to the table, and there is conversation and a process. There are bylaws for how somebody gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. I believe you can select 3 staff and 3 students, but not always do you have 6 people that are inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it's quite intense. It's a series of 5, 6, 7 meetings to get to that decision. So it was pretty cool having interviewed Carl, and obviously we know Carl and knew him before the interview, but to watch him go up on stage, he was emotional. His family was there, so that was pretty cool to see. Very
well-deserved honor.
Yep.
If there is a person you've ever interacted with, you go, yeah. But think about he is a permanent guest teacher for us. And the impact you have to make over a longer period of time. And it does speak to the fact that he's been a permanent guest teacher for us for a while. but the depth of relationships that have to be formed. I mean, Carl he resonates that.
Absolutely.
His family was there. That was they were very proud, very emotional. Yeah. My wife has the opportunity to work with Carl's son, and he sent Kelly a very kind text about that impact that has made for his dad. So not only do you just get to see it in the moment, you get to see how it also impacts people positively outside of that moment.
It was funny, on Friday before graduation, I ran into Carl at the regional track meet out at Pick North. And Carl was in like Ohio high school uniform, and of course he was working the track meet. And so I talked to Carl for a little bit, and he said something about graduation. And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm going to go to that. And he said, they asked me if I could go. There might be some things that they need help with. My grandson has a game that day, but I think I'm going to go because I want to be there for my Thomas Worthington team. And so that was probably how they set him up to be there, thinking that he was going to go and help, yet he was going to be awarded with
that
Hall of
single
Fame.
story just says everything about Carl.
It does.
Because to know Carl, he really wanted to be at his grandson's
He sure
baseball
did.
game.
Yep.
But he, instead of going to the grandson's baseball game, thought he was coming that day to help Thomas Worthington out in graduation. Yep. And that says everything about Carl.
It does. Then we got to interview Dr. Bowers, and that turned into a 2-part series with our superintendent of schools, which was a great interview.
Dr. Bowers, as a long-standing Worthington guy, the history that he brings is awesome. But, Ange, I think you were the one that approached the conversation with him, and that is about him mountain climbing and what he learns from that and how that has shaped his life and how that has impacted his family. And it's one step after another and continually progress towards something that is the ultimate outcome. And that's how he lives his life. Which,
it is, and it's how he leads us, right?
And we're very fortunate that Dr. Bowers is our superintendent, and we learned a lot from him over that 2-part series.
And then we rolled in the spring to school traditions as a series. I got to talk with Rick and Greg and Jennifer about their school traditions at the elementary, middle school, and then obviously Jennifer at Linworth Experiential.
All 3 of those were awesome. Just kind of reflecting back, you and I were both middle school principals, and kind of reconnecting with a middle school principal about canteens. In Worthington, we call our dances canteens. You did not call them canteens in Gahanna.
We did not.
But just hearing about how we provide those opportunities for students, and overnight, Rick coming in and giving us an update on the pump track, and always connected with Rick. He brings a certain energy into the room. And then Jen, I knew a lot about the Linworth walkabout because, as a former student hearing about it, but just hearing the passion behind that and the way they're connecting with students and the opportunities that are afforded to students in our district is awesome. Just to hear those stories and how already in high school, they have an opportunity to get out and change the world.
Yeah, and we truly have opportunities for all students. Linworth is a place where our students go and can lead. And how many places do you walk into a building and you have students leading the learning in the classroom? Like they sign up, they apply to teach a unit or to teach a short series of lessons, and that's pretty cool. Right? We give them that ownership to do that.
It's very cool.
And then our final series around health and well-being, we got to interview Nathan Kellenberger. Nathan is our former middle school principal at Worthing Way and will now, during the 24-25 school year and beyond, serve as the coordinator of behavior supports and mental health services. So it'll be great to have Nathan a part of our administrative team here at the Worthington Education Center. And then Chef Sam. We got to talk with Chef Sam about the opportunities that he provides, the healthy eating choices that he provides for all students, and of course his cookouts. And then Brianna Abbott, counselor at Worthington Kilbourne High School, talking about mental health and the support of our counseling team for all students.
That was a good way to end the school year. All three of them really represented the reason why they came into the room really, really well. And it just it's really cool that Nathan is sliding into that role. If you wonder how Nathan feels about relationships, go back and listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
And that's what Nathan's going to bring to the role. Sam brings a passion that, again, I said it on the podcast, but I will say it again. It's really cool that we have that position in our school district. Not many people do. And the cool thing is he goes out and actively gets feedback from students, and then they see that feedback in real time as he brings in different things and different choices for students to eat. And Brianna, I'm super proud of her.
Yeah.
I know she was nervous.
She's great. She was, but she did.
But she hit a home run on that.
She did.
Yeah. And I even texted her after. I said, please make sure to share that with your people, because I thought she did a really, really good job.
She really did. And, I think about Chef Sam, like you think about a chef and somebody that's working in our kitchens, but is really intentional about connecting with students and having, like you said, having conversations with students, and because that matters to him. So Jeff, it's pretty cool to sit here and talk about all of the people that we had an opportunity to interview and become a part of their lives through those conversations. One of the things that I failed to mention is that we're going to kind of end this with some bloopers. Now, we didn't make too many mistakes, although we made several. But Corey has this way of kind of saving all of those mistakes, we'll call bloopers, that we've made throughout the school year. So he'll play those for our audience to enjoy. And my hope is that in the 24-25 school year, we get to come back and do this all over again and bring new guests and some of our new teachers that we've got to hire this summer back to the table and have some of those interviews. So one of the comments I get, and I know you too, Ange, because you've been standing there when we get them, and that is people will talk about how good we sound. And this is a genuine, sincere shout out to Corey and the work that he has done all year to make us sound presentable. But as you and I both remind people who give us that compliment, if you are actually in the room, you would understand that the end product surely isn't the journey to get to the end product, because in a very short period of time, you're going to hear what it really sounds like in the room. And let me tell you, it does not sound like what Corey magically creates. The amount of times we stop ourselves and start again.
You typically say some funny, goofy things. I don't. So
yeah, right.
I look forward to it.
So before we end, we don't have the rapid fire questions. So before we end, there's one final topic I want to talk about.
Uh-oh.
I don't typically have the time to sit and watch movies, but I watched a Netflix movie this weekend. Matter of fact, I think it was Monday night, called Unfrosted.
Oh, yeah. I may have seen it.
And I turned it on and I was like, what is this? And I read the summary of it and I'm like, the early 1960s and Kellogg's versus Post and cereal. It's like,
it's a real thing.
Wait a second. I'm texting Jeff Maddox. Has Jeff watched this yet? And of course I text you and you're like, yep, I've already watched it. But that was unbelievable. This whole thing about reinventing breakfast, and they created this shelf-stable fruit pastry, which we all know turned into Pop-Tarts. But the whole story and the amount of stars
unbelievable
in that was
and
unbelievable.
The amount
the writer of that
references that will bring you, if you grew up anywhere close to that era,
right?
There are so many references that immediately pull you back to your childhood, which might explain my sincere interest in cereal. Because that was just that time. So if you want to watch a movie about how the Pop-Tart was created, fun fact about me, I've never actually had a Pop-Tart from a toaster.
What?
I've only eaten Pop-Tarts
cold.
Oh,
no, you got to toast
that
them.
Might honestly give a little insight on the fact that I have no patience. I just open that thing up and my thinking is it's already open. Might as well eat it. I've never had one out of a toaster.
Unbelievable.
Blueberry, by the way, shout out to Blueberry. That is, in fact, the best Pop-Tart.
Oh, no. I think it's cinnamon. Cinnamon with the icing on it. You have to have the icing.
We need to, maybe we flip greatest cereal of all time. What's the best Pop-Tart flavor?
All right. Corey.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's roll the bloopers.
Let's roll the bloopers. Thank you, everybody, for an incredible school year, and we look forward to talking to you next year.
Have a great summer, everyone.
My wife and I have a bucket list of concerts we want to see, but the list is actually entitled before they kick the bucket list. Share some things that go on at the bus garage.
Well, there's
That's kind of.
The school cooks had the freedom to create concoctions.
And he's been a real inspiration for me in just the way he tells really long, boring stories over and over again.
And within seconds, I was projectile vomited all over my shirt, my pants, and I was like, all right.
So Jeff, what I'm picturing though is Abby in a cereal costume singing Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah.
They shaped your life, the Spice Girls, didn't they? Were you hanging literally from the side of a rock?
Yeah, man, rock climbing.
I can tell you that I stayed up all night thinking about these, but I really didn't.
Okay, well, that's hurtful. If the Steelers were boxing with Ivan Drago, I would root for Ivan Drago.
Oh,
This is a circle. It knows how to get around. It's got a center.
I'm ready, but I don't think Rick's ready.
Is Rick ready? Rick
Ready for what?
Rick, do you know what happens next?
I don't.
Jeff, you having a hard time reading your handwriting?
I have a hard time reading my handwriting.
sorry. What'd you ask me?
That's all right. Let's talk about how your son cheats,
Well,
because he's going to listen to this. I want to know.
He'll, you'll say, I have that one, and then he'll change his, try to change. So
Come on.
he's got to turn in his score
Can't
sheet.
do that.
Because he wins every time. There's no way the kids win every time.
Tater round has more surface space
To get crispy.
to get crispy.
Yeah.
The round, you only get kind of that, that percentage of it.
We always
As you
order
go
extra
rounds,
crispy.
You eat Uncrustables for breakfast.
Sometimes.
This is awesome.
If it's
This is
strawberry.
going to be a good one.
Here are the 6 disciplines. Press pause. Get your mind right. Step up. Adjust and adapt. Make a difference. And build skill.